everyone. Welcome to the BAI Deep Dive discussion on personalization, moving beyond digital. I'm Holly Hughes, Chief Marketing Officer at BAI, and it's my pleasure to host a conversation today with three industry leaders on this important topic. First, we have Aarthi Murali from M&T. Aarthi is M&T Bank's first Chief Customer Experience Officer, where she focuses on enabling teams across the enterprise to design delightful end-to-end experiences for customers while building out capabilities to support them. She advocates for a diverse and inclusive culture that focuses on employee empowerment and learning. She also actively leads the connection between customer journeys and agile ways of working. Before joining M&T, Aarthi held a series of progressive leadership roles at JP Morgan Chase, where she most recently led the client experience for the company's commercial bank, fostering a culture of client advocacy. Aarthi, it's so great to have you with us. Next, we have Lamont Young from Citizens. Lamont is head of digital and head of customer experience for Citizens. He and his team are responsible for strategy and investment in digital technology, management of the online and mobile banking platforms, and the bank's public websites, along with leading digital sales growth for Citizens. In addition, his team leads customer experience strategy, including UX, journey design, client insights and experience, and quantitative research. Prior to joining Citizens, Lamont held several leadership positions with Bank of America in online and mobile banking, digital sales, digital media, and content development. And previously, he founded a firm that provides branded and digital services to small business. Lamont, so great to have you with us. And we're also joined today by one of my BAI colleagues, Karl Dahlgren. Karl is a managing director at BAI with more than 20 years of experience in the banking, payments, and software industries. He leads the BAI research business and product development for the enterprise. Karl previously ran BAI's learning and development business, and his background includes leadership roles with ABN AMRO North America and a technology startup in the payments industry. So it's so great to have you all with us today to take this deep dive into personalization, certainly a hot topic. The pandemic has and continues to impact how consumers interact and do business. There's no better evidence of this than the leapfrogging of digital adoption. This behavioral shift has caused the financial services industry, like many industries, to offer strong digital capabilities to engage and meet customer needs. And in doing so, the gap in customer experience has narrowed, with customer expectations now set at a higher bar. What's offered by other industries like retail is now expected reality in financial services. So what can financial services companies do to keep up with the newly minted consumer expectations? Let's dig in and hear what these industry leaders have to say. So first, I'd love to start out and get all of your perspectives. Aarthi, I'll start with you. The conversation around customer experience and personalization is certainly not new, but right now it does feel more relevant and urgent, I would say. Would love to get everyone's take on why that is and what's different, starting with you, Aarthi.
Absolutely. And Holly, thank you so much for having me on. And I think this is such a timely conversation to be having, pre-pandemic, that focus on customer experience and personalization was certainly there. And banks were certainly investing in digital capabilities, knowing that that's the right thing to do. And also knowing that customer value at the end of the day equals to any organizational's value and supports and promotes that shareholder value as well. But I think now the point around experience and personalization has been brought to the forefront even more so than ever before, where it's no longer a transaction and it's no longer just a channel of convenience. It's really about creating an experience that is advisory, that fulfills people's needs in their lives, creates an advisory capability to really experience and bring customers' needs into the forefront. So I don't think that organizations that are competing solely on products and services. When you think about that frame, that's the legacy frame that banking typically had. Banking itself being a very long-standing industry here in North America, but really we're now competing on experience. And organizations that pivot and compete on experience are really bound to succeed and frankly stay relevant for longer in the industry.
Yeah, great points. Karl, I know BAI has done quite a bit of research in this area. What would you say, is impacting the difference in the urgency in this area?
Well, Holly, we've got, first of all, thanks for the introduction and happy to be here. We do two different types of research within BAI's research line of business. First, we gather information from an account level from a number of the top banks in the US, and it's all anonymized and aggregated and then provided back in the form of thousands of metrics to the consortium members. That's one of our methods of research. The other one is BAI Banking Outlook, BBO. And we go out to bankers and consumers, and we identify trends that are occurring through market research. And so some of the information I'll be citing today is related to that. And what you brought up earlier, Holly, is that, and we're in the benchmarking business, that earlier type of research is called benchmarking. But consumers are benchmarking against not just their experience with their bank or their financial institution, but against the experience that they have elsewhere in their online life, right? So we've asked a question year over year about whether or not people would consider a non-traditional for their financial services needs. And in 2019, 48% said that they would. And that actually went up to 63% in 2020. So the trend has been really rising. It's less sticky, right? People are willing to go to someone like Apple or Facebook, and they would consider those folks for financial services. But interesting enough, the pandemic actually, I find it a bit ironic. While it's still high, 57% said that they'd be willing to do that this past year. It actually came down from 63%. So we have a slight reversal in that trend. It's also interesting if you start cutting it by the generation, because if you look at boomers and you slice by that, only 26% would consider a non-traditional, but you go to millennials and it's 80%. So it's important to understand the range of the consumers and what types of, how they're making their decisions. When you look at the Gen Z and the Gen Xers, they're around that norm that I cited earlier, Gen Z at 62 and the Gen Xers at 58%. And as long as I'm talking a little bit about the millennials, one trend I would say is that we were talking about that personalized experience. If you look at the top 4 reasons why people would consider a non-traditional, there's a lot of shared responses across the different generations, but millennials are the only one that said that they felt their experience would be more personalized if they went to a technology firm. And one other thing I just wanted to bring up so you've got these sort of non-traditionals that are coming in and disrupting the environment. But there's another category of disruptors, and they're the direct banks. And those are the banks that don't have, they don't have any branches, right? And so what we've done is year over year, we've done some research around, asking people, hey, do you need branches? Do you prefer banks with branches? How about those that don't have branches? And what about having some accounts at a bank with branches and some not? That's what we call hybrid. Hybrid's a word that everyone's using these days, right? So just to cite some statistics on the hybrid. So this is 2020 versus 2021, and this is cut across the 4 generations. Hybrid, interest in hybrid approach was 19, 21, 28, and 20%, okay, of those that we surveyed that would prefer the hybrid approach. That went to 27, 31, 31, and 25. So it went up on every single generation. And that actually came at the expense of the direct banks. So just another interesting observation about the pandemic's effect on how people are viewing the types of institutions they'd like to use and the experience that they have. And it's a little bit, I like to cite this information because it's not necessarily intuitive that would be the results.
Yeah, I think it's great to note. And hybrid definitely is the buzzword, I think, that we're seeing across a lot of different areas. So interesting to see how that applies here. Thanks, Karl. Lamont, how about you from your perspective? What would you add?
Thanks, Holly, and thanks for having me. Not a ton to add from Aarthi and Karl's comments. I think from our vantage point, we just see client conditioning around those personalized experiences becoming much stronger. To Karl's point, if my interactions with my favorite brands, whether that be in my digital life or my hybrid brick and mortar digital life, are ones that demonstrate that personalized touch, I'm going to expect that from my financial institution, right? So if my local coffee house can determine that I happen to be in the driveway and it can have my favorite latte available and the payment mechanism is pretty seamless, then I would expect my bank to know me just as well, given the amount of information that we have on our clients. If my expectation is that over the course of time, Amazon not only begins to learn my shopping habits, but they make the checkout process seamless and easy. I'm going to have that same level of expectation for my financial institution. So I think that notion of conditioning of customers is going to force us as FIs and as banks to really make sure that we're demonstrating the same kind of personalized sort of know me experience that customers are expecting across all of their lives.
Yeah, great points. And, you all gave us a really good foundation, I think, for the topic in terms of the sense of urgency. And certainly a lot of good work has been done in this area, but a lot of challenges. And I think some different challenges maybe too, with how quickly everything has accelerated. Lamont, start with you on this one. What are you seeing from a challenge standpoint, when it comes to executing a great personalized experience?
Yeah, and conversations with peers of mine, a lot of what it boils down to is just investments in infrastructure. As financial institutions, we don't have a lack of data. So it's not about what you have available. It is how you make that data available and useful that becomes, the larger challenges. I know many of us are investing in data lakes that have the ability to be able to consume mounds of information, but those lakes have to be built with the type of intelligence necessary in order to make all that awesome data available. I think oftentimes, as institutions, we don't set out with really core KPIs or real strong goals around it. We know we want to use the information. I think oftentimes we try to bite off more than we can chew. And so, the advice I often give folks who are starting this journey is start small. Identify those areas from a data standpoint and an infrastructure standpoint that you want to tackle first, and then build that momentum over the course of time. But I would say, the thing that I hear very, very often from my peers, and candidly even talking about our space as well, is just, do you have the right infrastructure in place? Have you made the right foundational investments to truly make all that rich data that we have as financial institutions readily available and usable for your institution?
Yeah, really good advice. I love that. Start small, get a little win, a few wins under your belt and go from there. I think that's great. Karl, what would you add, from the BAI perspective on this one?
Well, we asked the top priorities in terms of investment from financial institutions, and the digital experience ranked #1. So that's not overly surprising. It's also, we asked the question a little bit differently and said, what's the biggest business challenge? And it was also ranked #1. And we talked about what kinds of increases they would have from a budget perspective relative to the previous year. And over just around 80% said they would be increasing from anywhere from 5 to 20% their digital spend. And that's almost cut down the middle. So about half of that 80% is anywhere from 5 to 10%, and the other half at 10 to 20%.
Great. Thanks, Karl. And Aarthi, what perspectives would you add around the challenges?
I think Lamont's comments around data and using them to be actively applicable is incredibly important. And Karl, I thought your comments around just really the digital investments rings very true of financial institutions. I think if we were to go back to the premise of where we started around connecting the human into the digital, and how do you really bring and stitch through that human thread through digital, I think that's incredibly important. There are many different variety of solution providers out there, partners that we can work with who provide readily available out-of-the-box solutions that you could go there. But what customers are really looking for is the convenience and the ease of digital, but they don't want to lose that personal connection and touch. And when you think about the community bank mindset, at M&T, it's about, we want to make it easy for you, but we want you to know that we know you and we can help you and we can help those communities. So how do you really connect those two while navigating a bank's or any financial institution's organization? And by that, I mean the verticals, the departments, the various different products and setups within the organization that can be more vertical than horizontal. And customers experience FIs in a horizontal way, not a vertical way. They go through all of the various touch points, and they want to feel they want to experience a very unified feel to that. They don't want to feel like a department knew me and the other one doesn't know me. So how do you really stitch all that together and bring it to life? And part of that, I think, is a talent strategy, which has become, again, even more important now than before. How do you take care of your employees, your talent, your human capital in such a way that they feel connected to that purpose? And how do you offer and bring in the right talent to take us forward on data strategies, on experience strategies, building new and amazing digital capabilities? I think all of that comes together as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you raised the talent, piece. I think at BAI, we hear that across a lot of our executive roundtables and other interviews like this that we do for sure. And especially when it comes to this type of talent, you are competing against a lot, of very attractive industries and offers and things like that. So definitely something, to keep on the radar. I appreciate you mentioning that. So we've, identified a number of challenges. Let's talk about the opportunities in this space and, transition just a little bit into that. Aarthi and Lamont, I'd love to hear what kinds of things your organizations are doing around personalizing the customer experience and what the response has been so far. And Aarthi, maybe we'll start with you on this one.
Sure. And maybe I'll try to follow on my last few comments about talent and culture, just bringing that forward again. We think about customer centricity at M&T as being outside in and really bringing what our communities and customers feel, they want, they desire, and bringing it inside. But at the core of it, there is a behavior and belief that we have always been customer centric because we're deeply embedded in the communities that we operate, and we're out there really helping our communities thrive, not just survive, but thrive. And how do we partner with the local businesses and the people who live in those communities? How do we offer, very tailored language preferences and delivery services that a particular community might need, that a different market might not need? And really having, again, back to Lamont's point around the data intelligence and market insights to know that one market is not the same as another. So how do you help that market and community? But hey, how do we do that while we're digitally forward and technology and bringing technology and tools and aids to the people in those communities as well? So we recently launched a bank-wide event called CX Ignite, and it was really just about that. It was really igniting our purpose, bringing that to the forefront. We showcased our colleagues across the bank doing amazing work to serve customers and really enriching those stories. And we want to tell more about that. Our operating model philosophy is around being journey-led and agile build, talent focused and data-driven. And how do you stitch those concepts together? At the end of the day, those are separate concepts, but how do you really bring them together for the purpose of delivering on amazing experiences for the customers? Because what you do right for the customers is good for the organization. It makes complete mathematical sense, even from a financial perspective at the end of the day. But I know Lamont has some incredible points to add here as well.
Yeah, Lamont, let us know. Yeah, what's up with you guys? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, at Citizens, we started our journey out looking to create what we felt like would be a best-in-class experience to be able to both cross-sell our existing customers with relevant products and services, but also to acquire new customers. And we started that because not only obviously is it financially good for the bank to continue to grow our client base, but we also wanted to make sure that any offer or any opportunity to do business with us that we put in front of a customer or a prospect was relevant, and that we would capture their attention on something that made sense. But more importantly, we wouldn't turn them off with something that didn't make sense at that point for their financial lives. So pretty ambitious to start with an initiative that touched both customers and prospects. But we felt like if we cut our teeth on this one and if we got it right, it would give us the ability to be able to expand across the board. So, through a combination of both first party, second party, and third party data, we tried to make the process of cross-selling and onboarding customers really seamless across the board. We found by doing this that our marketing was much more efficient, that feedback from clients feedback from both clients and prospects, on our approach to communications became stronger. We got better NPS scores around it because what we were offering the customers simply made sense for them where they were within their financial journey. And starting that way gave us the opportunity to really take a look at things like onboarding. How do we create the most seamless, the most personalized onboarding experience for customers so that they know that, again, we know them. We know enough about them that we create that experience. Now, the careful thing that I would always give folks advice on is you got to watch out for the creep factor. So you can't, it'll be careful about knowing too much about customers. But I think one of the things that we found when clients interact with their favorite brands is, the more you can actually make the process easier for me, the more willing customers are to be able to give up a little bit of that process of making the experience more personalized. And so, those are some of the things that we've done. We've got, I think one of the big highlights for us this summer, we launched our home equity fast line product, which is, a nearly one-click process for both customers and prospects to be able to do business with us with home equity lines. So it takes advantage of the fact that there's publicly available information that we would use, obviously, to be able to underwrite a loan. It takes advantage of information, especially first-party data that we have on our own customers, to really deliver a seamless experience for clients and be able to deliver home equity lines, honestly, in record time.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I, love that point about relevancy and outside in. I think that's how you make it less feeling like it's a little big brother and, having too much information. It goes back to what you said earlier, Lamont, about it's all what you do with it. So making really great, relevant, products and services and offers. So both of you are doing really great work within your organizations. Would love to just know, lessons learned along the way. I think it's always interesting in these leadership journeys, to understand what you've learned. You've mentioned some things, as you've shared some of those other answers, but Lamont, anything else you would add in terms of just, lessons learned?
Yeah, I think the big thing, and I think Aarthi said this very well, having talent all organized around the same set of, or at least a similar set of goals and principles becomes really, really important, right? Anytime you're talking about using tons of data to deliver personalized experience, there's lots of opinions at large organizations like ours as to exactly what you want to do. And there's a ton of different ways you can actually go. I think we had some really good, healthy debates at the very beginning of our journey. And those healthy debates on where to focus and how to focus both dollars, talent, and resources, I think were critically important to us actually beginning our journey pretty strong. We certainly had no shortage of different options that we could have taken to sort of begin our journey. But I think that upfront conversation, not just with folks within CX or folks within data, but really team members from across the spectrum, was really, really important for us to get off at the right foot. So I would say if you're beginning your journey, certainly make sure that you're having that right level of dialogue. Or if you're somewhere in between, make sure you're doing the right check-ins to be sure that everybody remains on the same page about where you want to go with the journey.
Yeah, great advice. Aarthi, what would you add?
Yeah, I mean, Lamont, those are some great reflections. Very, very much resonates with me as well. Maybe I'll add a couple of different ones around. Really important to keep a North Star in mind and vision in mind as you go and embark on these, because there is never any dearth of opportunities. The list is really long, and the backlog, as we call it, is lots of different ways, lots of different tactics, lots of different opportunities to delight our customers and make our employees' lives so much more satisfying as well. But having that North Star vision is your larger, bigger, slower flywheel, if you will, which is the larger transformative effort of, what do you really want an onboarding process to look like? If you had a white blank piece of paper, what would that look like? But the reality is we can't just unplug it and start there. We have to kind of work towards that North Star. So then that becomes your smaller, faster flywheel. So the lesson learned that I would say is, how do you keep both flywheels in motion, knowing that they're going at different pace? And probably different scale, but the smaller one allows for a lot of momentum, building belief, showing wins, while the larger one is keeping you purpose-led and towards that overall mission that you wanna go for.
That's great. Thanks, Aarthi. Appreciate you sharing those. A lot of good lessons. And I think people are probably reflecting, quite a bit on what you all have shared. Karl, go to you for just kind of any final points in terms of, again, what you're hearing from clients or the research around lessons learned when it comes to effective personalization.
Yeah, just to pick up on a couple of things that Aarthi brought up, and also Lamont. Lamont spoke about having data, but having that data and using it in a way that's helpful in terms of prioritizing your investments. And so we're always looking in our information whether or not there's a disconnect between where the bankers believe they should be investing and what the consumers are identifying. And I think Aarthi brings up a good point. I'd look at it. I look at that kind of the lens of agile, right? So everything's changing so rapidly. You need data to inform those changes because just what you expected to be the case last year is not the case this year. So you do have to have those sort of those small bets, and you have to be able to tack to the right or the left quickly when you get information. Some things that we've looked at. So how can you improve the customer experience for digital? Consumers see it as offering customized solutions. That does appear in the top 3 for the banks, but the omni-channel is the number 1 belief in terms of that's how the bankers answer the question, right? They also say, hey, we need to invest in mobile, and that doesn't even appear in the top 3 for the consumer. So just a little bit of nuances and differences there. Also, in terms of features, we've asked customers what kind of features they would like, and they answer 24/7. That's what they're looking for. If they can pick up a phone 24/7 and get an answer, that's what they're looking for. And the bankers are focused on adding features that help improve the omni-channel experience, and then also online account opening. 2 very important things, but a little bit different between the 2 groups there. So it's really important to line up with what the consumers want and make those smart investments, like Lamont was saying, and prioritize the things that the customers find important.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for sharing your insights. It's great to see the progress that you and your organizations have made in this area and the opportunities to come. Certainly, this is not going away. It will continue to evolve and become more and more important. Karl, appreciate you also sharing a lot of the great BAI research on this topic as well. And for those of you listening, I hope this helps give you some data, some context, some examples, maybe a little inspiration that you can leverage as you build your own plans to improve your overall customer experience with enhanced personalization efforts for 2022 and beyond. And you can learn more about this topic and other key industry issues at bai.org. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great day.